Dear Lord, we ask you to bless this meeting, and I have a simple request that you guide us to do what you would have us do rather than us bug you to do what we want you to do. Help us to follow your guidance. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Okay, for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Jessica, you want to start? Okay, go right ahead.
So there have been, these three gentlemen over here have worked really, really hard on some of the material that has been put out in front of you that they are going to introduce. And I know most of you know Daniel Lee at this point, but we also have Daniel McKinney and Bill McKinney. And I have just really enjoyed working with them and coordinating getting a lot of this material that's out in front of you. It has been a joy to have so many talented and engaged people step up and really try to bring solutions to the table. We've had a few months of saying, we don't like this, we don't like that, we don't like this, we don't like that. Now it's time to look at solutions. So that's what tonight is about. So I'm going to get these guys up here and we're going to talk about the solutions.
I'd like to add one more thing before you start, just real quick. We should always recognize our elected officials when they show up for something like this. I saw Henry Wilson come in. He's here somewhere, I believe, at the back. Alex Seda is with us, County Council. Henry's with County Council. Neil Collins, our state representative in District 5 in Easley. Any other elected officials? Chris, thank you for coming. Chris Loftus, I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't see you, with the County Council. And Denise Richardson with City Council. Denise, wave everybody. Oh, and boy, I'm good. I'm falling behind. David, you didn't raise your hand, David. And David Jones, recently elected to the City Council. Did I miss anybody else? Hey, Clay. He's on the Planning Commission. Anyway, I think that's got it covered.
All right, very good. My name is Bill McKinney, and I live in Easley, or in the county, close to the Greenville line. And you know, the big concern that we have is the major growth around Greenville that is making its way into Easley now. And we've seen it done not the best in other cities in the area, Simpsonville out to Greer and so forth. And we think that, hey, we've got the last best chance in Pickens County to try to do something better than it has been done in other places. And so to that end, we're trying to make some reasonable observations and suggestions that we think would make our growth and our county a more pleasant place to be. And to that end, Daniel Lee hosted an event at his barn several months ago, and we had a lot of turnout there and showed there was a lot of interest by a lot of people to, you know, take a look at how this is going to happen. Just to catch everybody up on some of the things that have happened in the meantime, several of us who were there that night have gone to quite a few different meetings that have been at the county or city. My cousin Daniel and I went to the combined utilities meeting, and we there learned that there is a new sewer trunk line that is coming to the county. It's through a federal grant. It's going to run basically from Heathwood that's on Heritage Road, kind of behind Walmart, to the Greenville County line to connect with Rewa. And that's going to be a major trunk line, meaning there can be branches that come into it. And so there's going to be a lot of growth along that corridor. We've gone to county council meetings, and there we successfully, our group, this Alliance for Sustainable Development, was able to get a moratorium, and we thank our county council for getting a moratorium on developments over 50 houses. So that is still in effect as of right now. And in the meantime, we're trying to work on some reasonable ideas that would be good to put in place before we open it back up. So we've had some good open ears from the Planning Commission at the county level, and we're very appreciative to those folks as we try really to work on some requests that we have to maybe, just present some good ideas on things we see that would be problems that we don't want to invite into the county, that we'd rather have a better place to live for us and for the people that move here so that we can have the best county around. We've also been to city meetings and, heard that their developments there tend to, the idea is a little bit more around, very close together housing with separate parking. And so that's another topic for us to potentially tackle. And we've had personal meetings with representatives as well. So we've had a lot of good interaction over the last couple of months. And just that brings us here to tonight, where we're finally ready to bring some of the ideas that we have for the Planning Commission and then ultimately for the County Council on ways that some of these large developments can just be better. So, you should see some of these around in the room. They sort of outline some of the main points that we have. We have further rationale beyond just the single page, but we did want to talk about some of these. So, I don't want to spend all the time. If one of my other compatriots here would like to bring us in on some of the finer points here. Okay, yeah, thanks.
And so the first thing on the list is the impact fee. So when you drop a development that has 1,248 houses, I think that was what Westridge was? 68, okay. Almost 1,300 houses. In the middle of a rural area, you're going to put a very big strain on the infrastructure and on the services. And we just can't absorb it. So we're going to have improvements, and we don't feel that the residents of the county should be the ones paying 100% for everything that the development is going to cause. And so we are suggesting an impact fee of $10,000 per home. We think that this could be a tiered fee to where like a larger development would have a larger impact fee per home, because those larger developments are going to be the ones that really cause the strain on the resources.
Right, and what he means is there have to be schools built, there have to be fire trucks purchased and firehouses and school buses and turn lanes and roads and so forth, and all of that cost will fall on the county, which means it would fall on all of us to get those improvements, and they have to be done right away, within just a year or two of these developments landing in the county, and that's why we think a fee is reasonable.
So the next point on here is on obtainable housing. So we are sensitive to the fact that housing prices have gone really high lately, and if you're a young family just starting out and you have these new developments that are building $250,000 or $300,000 or more homes, it's going to be difficult for a young family just starting out to be able to get started and to purchase a home. But what we don't want to do is to have the government subsidize or something like that and really kind of interfere with it. So what our suggestion is here is to, in the ordinance, is to mandate a square footage requirement. So once you have a neighborhood of a certain size, 10% of those homes have to be 1,000 square feet. And if you make a 1,000 square foot home, you make it with more basic trimmings, if you will. We've talked to some builders. Bill talked to a builder, and they can do that for $150,000 is what they've said. Right. So we want the market to set the price. The people that buy the homes, they have to live in the homes. You can't be an investor and buy it and rent it out or something like that. You have to buy it, you have to live there, but it's yours. So because I think there's some suggestions just kind of out there for affordable housing where there's some limitations on when you can sell it or how much money you can make or something like that. But we're saying that the market sets the value per square foot kind of, so we're going to mandate that you build a house that has less square feet, so that will lower the price, and then the market sets it, you buy it, you own it, and so that's what will make it more obtainable.
Right. Instead of doing something kind of artificially against the market where you might even be setting yourself up for a legal battle in the future when that person wants to get out of that house for whatever reason, you know. Yeah.
And to further incentivize it, it would be on those, the 10% of those homes that are 1,000 square feet or less, the impact fee would be waived. And we could go up to 15% with the waived impact fee.
Right. Lest the developer build nothing but 1,000 square foot houses and have no
Right.
impact fee.
Right.
So, right.
But
So
to kind of provide a carrot.
yeah, it's just one of the topics that's been out there, and it has kind of the words have been out there on a lot of news clips and all, but we wanted to actually present a solution for that problem. Daniel.
So the next two are kind of related with the development buffer and the riparian buffer. So one of the things we want is when you are building these large neighborhoods, there's going to be an open space requirement, and that's where actually all three of these are kind of related. So the current open space requirement is 20%, and we want to increase that to 50%, which in some meetings that they had with the county planning with Trad, I think is his name, right? He said that 50% is the average, is the national average. So we want to be at least at 50%. So in part of that open space, what we want to do is surround the development. So 30 yards wide all the way around except for entrances and exits. And so that'll do a couple of things. One thing that it'll do is provide wildlife highways. So wildlife can still move rather freely throughout. So if you have these developments and all of them have this boundary, that'll be places where the wildlife will be able to go. And it'll also, I think, help kind of maintain the character of what we see today when we're driving around the county, because you'll drive by a big development and you'll see trees. So I think it'll help maintain the aesthetic of the county as well as help with the wildlife.
Yeah, and
county.
help mitigate sound, light, that sort of thing, if it happens to back up to your farm. And it'll also help provide a buffer for those houses should they back up to an industrial area or whatever. You've got 30 yards of uncut trees, just woodland, all the way around a subdivision. And so then, yeah, you combine that with the next subdivision, now you got 60 yards, and that makes a nice animal corridor for the county and keeps the county looking nice.
And we would like it also to remain untouched. So you're not going in and clear cutting all of the land and then building the houses. This barrier has to remain throughout the process. And then with the riparian, oh, you have something, Bill?
No, go ahead.
With the riparian buffer, so we want 50 yards between any structure, or really I think probably their property lines, but at least any building, and any streams, waterways, rivers, things like that. And so this should help with some of the flooding issues. If a lot of y'all have probably seen the videos and pictures of some of the flooding over on Sheriff Mill in that area by some of those new developments. So this should help with that, and by letting the water disperse. It also help filter the water by the time it gets to the stream, help clean out silt and branches and stuff like that, and help keep our waterways cleaner. Pickens County,
we are the headwaters.
Yeah, it is in the
about
headwaters
half the state.
for the state. Right, we have waterways in our state that are the headwaters for the Savannah Basin and also the Saluda Basin, and so we need to protect our waterways.
Yep. Moving on, we've got home setbacks. Now, what that means is the how close you can build to your property line. One of our big concerns in a lot of these neighborhoods that we've seen that have been built recently is houses are built so close to the roads that there's such little driveway that people end up parking in the roads. There's basically room for a car in the driveway. And then if you ever go into these places, you see cars and, you have to run the gauntlet to just get down the road there. So we're concerned. There have been problems in other parts of the state when emergency vehicles need to get through, or you can't get school buses through. There's just too many people parked on the roads. So we are proposing a larger setback of 20 yards from the home to the road or the sidewalk, whichever it encounters first, to give space for basically people to get off the road with their vehicles. And it's also nicer too. Same thing between homes. Right now, the ordinance is just 5 feet on the side. So you could have 5 feet to the side of your house and then 5 feet to the next house. There's 10 feet literally between houses. That then has AC units and things like that. And we've talked to guys who deliver dirt or mulch, and they say, I can't even get a Bobcat through there. You know, if a cable company, anything that needs to get to the back of the house can't get to the back of the house. There's no way to drive between houses. And it's just too tight, not to mention the fire danger that it creates by having houses that close together. Unlike an apartment, you don't have sprinkler systems. So you create a real potential fire danger by having houses that close together. So we just think that these setbacks all around would make for a better community and a safer one.
You want to talk about tree ordinance? Dan?
One of the things, so you guys have heard me speak a lot, and one of the things I will mention real quick, like the $150,000 isn't a number we just plucked out of the air. The median income in Pickens County last year for a family of 4 was $57,000. So roughly about 2.5 times your income will allow you to borrow the money to purchase a home. So that is a purposeful pick of that. We've talked about, all the things we want, and I'm going to talk about the tree ordinance, so I'm going to bring that up. But one of the things that they asked me also to talk about the politics and maybe a little bit of the legal issues. But I think I want all of us to go, I want you to remember these 2 words, why not? Every time we meet with somebody, we seem to get a little pushback like, well, we can't have a tree ordinance. Well, Charleston has a tree ordinance, and they enforce it, and it looks nice if you go to Charleston. People will say we can't have setbacks. Well, why not? Well, that just won't fly. It will fly. I mean, we have to speak as one body. We have to talk to our politicians. We have to meet with them, do these very things. But I just want you to say, why not? Now, the tree ordinance we would like to follow would be the one that Charleston County has. And basically, any tree over 24 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet above the ground, you can't cut down, except if a drive was going to come through with a special permit. Also, you can, if it's a full acre lot, you have to maintain 15 of these trees, but you can cut down the others. And so if you can go onto their website, we've talked about it before. I think at our first meeting, I even gave the county council members sort of a little summary of the Charleston tree ordinance. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, kind of to your point, enforcement or...
Well, one of the things we talked about is what are the issues, and Mitch is here, and Mitch has been really frustrated, and everyone who probably here has talked to Mitch because Mitch is a very talkative guy, and he's very eloquent. And, what happened with the neighborhood down there in Linhart Grove is that things sort of slipped through the cracks. And we all talked about that, where they annexed using the utility line to do that, and then many, many rules were not followed, such as the exits and, the width of the roads. I mean, you can pull a school bus in and you can't turn it around. A fire truck the same way. So we don't want to see these things happen again. So we're proposing that with some of this impact money and hopefully some increased tax base, that we have 2 full-time enforcement officers, and that they review plans of these developments before they start, before shovels hit the dirt, and that monthly they go by and check, and even for a period of 12 to 24 months after the development is completed, to make sure that things aren't going to change, that they're not pulling fast ones. I don't have I hope to know developers here. I don't trust most developers, and I think we really have to really hold their feet to the fire. Most of those people are not here. The jobs, I've checked this out. There's, they buy the vinyl siding by the 10 million lineal feet. The framing packages come from out of state. The plumbing, electrical, all that. The only thing I can find is that most of them are using Thomas Concrete, which is a local concrete. And that's about the only jobs. Most of the framers and people are sort of itinerant. So they're really not helping our community with jobs at all. What else were we going to tell you?
2 other things, pretty
You can
quickly.
get those. You
Okay,
can-
sure.
I'll talk about my stuff too.
Okay. So, with 2 other things to hit real quickly. Traffic studies, obviously a big concern. We think that the developers need to at least have a study done at their cost that would account from their development to the main corridors, whether that's 123 or 153. However you would get to the interstate from the development needs to be studied, because that's going to be of major concern. And then amenities, just to make it nice in a neighborhood, we're proposing that for every 200 houses, some kind of an amenity get built. A playground, a basketball court, swimming pool, tennis court, frisbee golf, whatever, but per 200, just so it's not nothing but houses and no space for people to enjoy life and their families. So that's a pretty simple one. And I'm going to let Daniel talk a little bit.
Well, I've had a lot of people ask me, can we challenge all these stuff legally? I mean, can we get lawyers, which lawyers are very expensive. Neil could probably, he's a real estate attorney, he can probably speak to a lot of these things better than I can. But one of the things is people talk about legal challenges to annexation. And typically you have to have 30 to 60 days after a city rules on it to challenge it. And it's very difficult. And one of the big issues for all of us to overcome is, do we have standing? Which means, the county might have standing, but as individuals, we might not have legal standing to challenge it. So, if that's a route we want to go, I think we have to push our county council people to challenge these things. There's rules which you can look up online. We sort of put some of them on our website about you're not supposed to use utility lines. Property has to truly be contiguous. You can't use a road. All these things, it looks like, have been used. But the problem is, again, it's a very important legal principle, is standing. Do we have standing to challenge it? And so Neil's nodding his head, so I think he agrees, yeah. And so that's an issue. We may not. And so unless the county gets behind it and we have to push Henry and Mr. Lawless and everybody else, if that's the issue, we go. I think, though, that politics is probably going to be our most successful, that we should, as much as we can, intervene and, politic and canvas for people that we feel like hold our viewpoints, support the people that are helping us now and make sure they get reelected. And if we feel that people are obstructionists, then we need to politic and get them elected, that we can have our own candidates. And I know Denise has been involved, so you can talk to Denise about this. It's important to canvas people. It's important to give money. Money's important, and this is a big issue for all of us. Our homes are our biggest investments for most of us. So if you really believe in this, you really have to do that. And I think that's going to be, in the long term and the short term, our best avenue. And we've had some successes. And I think the fact that we have so many county council people and city council people here is a testament to how effective some of our efforts have been. Jessica, you want to come talk a little bit about? Yeah.
No,
You clean up.
I will just add that from the beginning of this, I was told over and over by many of these very same elected officials in the room that the most effective thing we can do is have individuals, residents, message them, email them. It doesn't really, it matters, but it doesn't matter as much if they're hearing from the same 5 people over and over. They need to hear it from 500 people. So a big part of my mission has been raising awareness with you guys and getting you guys to tell more people and having you all write into them. So we're trying to make it easy right now by having this very clear, simplified, parsimonious way of saying these are the things that we stand behind. This is what we researched. This is what we looked at and agree with. And if you are also in agreement with it, there is a page in the back on that little table that's back there that you can put your name, and we're going to put this in front of Planning Commission, planning staff at county, and it's going to go hopefully in front of county council for them to look at and say these are the changes that the residents want to see. So that's what we're looking for with this document tonight, is for you guys to be able to look at it. And if you feel differently about it, that's super okay. You take the time and write up what you do agree with and what you do want to see, because I would love nothing more for you to make it personal to what you believe and what you want to see. That's so much more meaningful than signing your name to something that we made. We want you to do it. But if you are in agreement with what we made, we wanted to make it easy where all you have to do is put your name on that form back there, and when we submit it, they'll know these are the people that were in agreement with what we did. So that's what that paper is back there. I think the guys did a really good job of covering what's on the pages and the rationale behind it. There was even more research behind it than what you just heard. These guys put hours and hours of research into what it costs to build a school, what it costs to have a school bus, what it costs for all these different things to come up with the numbers that they did. That $10,000 impact fee was not arbitrary. There was research that went behind that. We looked at national averages, and while that 10 may feel kind of high and have some sticker shock, we do think it's appropriate for what the county would be facing with the development that is coming down the pipeline that we know for sure is coming. So that's where that number came from. So I think that's all from me on this. Did you?
And I would tell you that I don't think any of these things, we looked them all, we tried to do canvas the internet. None of the things that we're asking for are outrageous. All these things exist in other localities. Truthfully, we use things like yards instead of feet because we felt that sounded a little better. And, so again, when you meet with your county council people, you meet with your city council, and you'll have planning commission people sometimes will say, well, we don't think we can get a tree ordinance. We don't think we have this. Why not? That needs to be your mantra. Why not? And make them explain why not, because I don't understand why not. Because, like I said, these aren't outrageous things we've asked.
And the one other thing, I'm so sorry, the one other thing that I did remember that didn't get written down in this that I wanted to add is one of the things that we're going to push for is rather than having ways to support these big national developers coming in and making this product that they know is going to make them money, what they're putting, that we're seeing so much of, is a product that they know is going to make them money. Because we know I worked for one of those national builders, and I remember listening to our CFO talk about our balance sheet and what we were going to build to make sure that we were all hitting our bonuses. And what I would like to see Pickens County do is set the bar different, be different. Let's find our local builders and support them and work for them, because I have also worked for a local builder. And it is an apples to elephants difference what you get when you have a local builder building versus a national builder. So we want to find ways. I understand that tax abatement is illegal, but we've got to find ways to support those local builders, because it has the twofold benefit of investing money locally, keeps our money local. We're keeping our jobs local. We're keeping all of that with our neighbors and our friends. But also it just turns out a different product. Those people, those men and women that are building those houses know that they're going to be looking at those houses for the next 20, 30, 40 years that they're living here. They care about the quality that they build. So that is one thing, I'm so sorry, that didn't make it in there. But as we were talking, I remembered that that is part of our mission there. No, we're going to have Clay, if he'll come up for just a second, to speak just a little bit more about those setbacks, and then we're going to come to you with a question. So,
And one little statistic I'd like to throw in that I got from you.
okay.
Over the last 10 years, building permits, applications averaged around 900 a year in Pickens County.
9,600.
Over
Over the course of 10 years, there were 9,600 permits.
And go ahead.
And then in the last year, that same number was the number of permits that was issued for the year. So the same that went out for a year was for the whole decade previous.
So it's increased 10 times in 1 year.
So we're having huge development. So we'll let Clay lend just a little more light on the setbacks.
All right. Make sure I'm in the shot. I like being good. So thank you all for coming here tonight. I've been involved with local politics, things like this for a long time, and anytime there's more than 3 people, it's usually a good sign. So props to you guys for coming out. I think I'll give you guys a real brief background of where we stand now, where the Planning Commission's gone. Obviously, I'm Clay. I speak for Clay. I'm on the Planning Commission. I don't say these guys need to do this or that. I'll give you my 2 cents. We've voted on the maximum number of lots for a conventional subdivision, which is your normal subdivision, a little more lax rules, and then we spent some time discussing open space subdivisions and the rules associated with those. Open space has come up a lot. The last thing that we sent forward was 40%, and I've heard a lot of feedback, people saying they want 50. So, my 2 cents, I think that's well within reason, because that is the state average and the national average from what I've heard there. There's a few other points in there along the lines of townhome developments, RVs, and things like that, which are, in my opinion, important, but not really at the crux of the issue. So based on my feedback I've heard from people like yourself, and I've got to meet with many of you people, is setbacks on the homes. So you think if you have homes, especially on the front setback, we've heard the issue, let's say the setback, say 10 feet. I've got the numbers in front of me of the current setbacks, and I'll read those off to you guys so you have an idea. I'm going to go with open space, which is what most will fall under what we call large developments. The front setback is 10 feet, as it is written now in the ordinance. So modern cars are a little bit longer than 10 feet, a lot of those are. So we end up at safety issues, things of that nature. And I know you can say, well, people can't park on the road, it's against the law, park on the road, whatever it may be, people do it. So that's one of those things that I think, using my judgment, I think it'd be a good idea to increase those numbers. And then the side and the rear setbacks currently are 0 feet. So that seems a little unfair for me to come in first, build on the lot line, and then tell my neighbor, well, I think it's 10 feet, you have to be off the next house, to tell them, oh, you got to come 10 feet off. So where we stand now on the Planning Commission is we've sent some of the things forward for council to review. The people, as part of the planning department, have developed this matrix for us, and you can see it online if you go to pickenscounty.com, and I think it's pickenscountysc.com, and it's under the planning section. You can see this little matrix, and it's got all my scratch notes on it, so it's not nice and clean. But take a look at that. Take a look at those numbers, and come to me, come to your council members, and say, hey, I think this is way too small. We need to look at this. Also has the minimum lot sizes, which are something to consider as well. So for me, and this is my 2 cents based on what I've seen and read and researched and kind of thinking through this. The setbacks are an area that really needs to be addressed. That's something I feel like needs to be increased, especially on the larger developments. So you think if you have somebody that's dividing family land, let's say they want to take a plot and divide it 5 ways amongst their family. If they want to build close to one another, that's their business. That's my opinion. But if you're coming in on this large development, I think the setbacks need to be much greater than what they are currently. So I think that's an area, love to hear your guys' feedback. I see some numbers here that I think are great and a good starting point. So if you guys have any input on that, fire away. You can call me, Facebook, whatever works best for you guys, and we'll do it.
So the takeaway on the setbacks there with Clay is County Council seems to be relying, in a good way, on some of the recommendations from Planning Commission. So the point there would be that he is saying that they are seriously considering setbacks. So this is the time to reach out to Planning Committee and say, yes, we would like to see bigger setbacks, because that's what's going to make its way in front of County Council and be in their faces. So make sure that if you were worried about setbacks, as we are, because we feel like that's the low-hanging fruit on a big way to make an impact on these big developments coming in, that you reach out to Planning Commission and to County Council. I'm going to let Jenny also speak for just a minute. She had a few things she wanted to say. Her focus is a little bit more Easley centered, but I know the vast majority of us are County Easley residents and some Easley residents, so I thought that what she had to say would be relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I want to thank everyone who has welcomed me so warmly and being involved in this group. I should have been involved long before this, especially since after some research into family history today, I've been saying 5th generation Easley, 6th generation Easley resident. And I'm fortunate to have a very detailed family history at my disposal. And as I reread it earlier today, I was struck by the repetition of the phrase, and they returned to Easley to live. My great-great-grandparents, my great-grandparents, my grandparents, after World War I, after World War II, and they returned to Easley to live. And I try not to cry because it just struck me in my soul that they wanted to come back home. And they always came back home. And they usually brought a family with them. Sometimes the family got here after they arrived, such as my Uncle Rhett. He was on the way. No one stayed gone longer than they had to. And I want my descendants in the future to always want to return to Easley to live. And going on that, I want Easley to be a place that's worth coming back to live to. My current goal is to specifically work on changing the ordinance 30.25, I believe that number's correct, Denise, that is restricting people from speaking at City Council. My proposal would allow anyone with a physical address of 29640 or 29642, and also individuals that own property inside the city limits, to be allowed to speak at Easley City Council meetings. I believe that's a very reasonable request. Thank you. I plan to speak with each council member individually. I've got a meeting set tomorrow, and I know I've got 2 people here that will happily speak with me, because I think we can get this introduced, and there's absolutely no reason that it shouldn't pass. Because as I said at Easley City Council a week or so ago, what City Council is doing is affecting so many more people than just the people inside the city limits. And it's inexcusable, it's irresponsible, and it's just not okay to not hear people's voices when what you're doing is directly impacting their lives. I'm also curious about, at the Easley City Planning Commission meeting last week, there was mention made of the Board of Architectural Review that is soon to be continued / reinstated. They're going to be looking for volunteers for that. They will, of course, want some architects because, they would have some expertise. But I was told by Mario, the city planner, that they're not just looking for that. They need volunteers. They need people that are willing to do it, that are willing to put their effort and work into this to make sure that it's done properly and not just, I have to be at this meeting, which was honestly the impression I got at the Planning Commission meeting the other evening. It seemed like people didn't want to be there. Another major concern is that and speaking with a few people, is there seems to be way too much willingness from the city to negotiate with these developers regarding the density of new and proposed developments. They might say, okay, we need this density inside the city limits, but oh, if you'll do such and such here or such and such here, we can maybe fudge that a little on that density. I don't think we need to be negotiating with these people. No, they're not from here. They're not stakeholders. They just want our money. And the last thing I want to say is, and the elected officials are here, you're doing it right. Thank you. But the customer's always right. And the officials that aren't here or that maybe are not listening as they should need to remember that we citizens, whether county or city, citizens are the customer, not these greedy, irresponsible, and unscrupulous developers. They need to listen to us, not people from out of state that don't care. And that's it. If you are a Easley resident that is in the county, and until we can get it to where you can speak, if you've got something to say, find me. I'm a city resident.
Don, oops, that was way louder than I thought it was going to be. Don, would you like to say something before we go to questions? No, you okay? Yeah, okay.
And then we did have one right here that I wanted to make sure.
Oh, okay.
But you go ahead, Don. Since we got you up.
Well, guys, I'm not really good at this, but thank you.
Don Crooks, by the way.
Guys, I got involved in this because of Sheriff Mill Road. We all in this little group over here got involved because of the annexation that was happening on Sheriff Mill Road. And we just did not want the city around us. We kind of have the city around us, but we didn't want any more because we couldn't dictate what was going across the street from us. So the county ordinances are completely different than city ordinance. So the city development that was going across the street from us was going to be higher density. They were going to bring in dirt. They were going to build houses that didn't meet the qualifications of the homes around us. And so we kind of got involved and ended up kind of backdooring our way with these guys into the city meetings and getting involved that way. And if any of you don't understand annexation, the way it works is you have to be contiguous on either side of the property or across the street. You can't use any kind of easement, utility line, or anything. You have to be directly beside. Well, we kind of got messed up on our situation because there's 55 feet across the street on the property on Sheriff Mill Road that made this contiguous. And it was kind of like an old cattle trail back in the day that made this land contiguous. So the city won on that aspect. And it still has not been voted in, so please come to the city council meetings and make a stand for us. Hopefully, once the ordinances are voted in, they are going to vote on this annexation, and maybe you guys won't vote it in. I'm just asking you. But one of the things I wanted to discuss maybe tonight is the fact that annexation laws probably need to be updated, Neil, and maybe you could help us work on that a little bit. The one thing that we as citizens have no rights with annexation. The property owner holds all of the rights if it's a contiguous development. There is nothing we can do. The county can't do anything. We as citizens can't do anything. The city decides if they want to let this property come in as long as it's contiguous, and we have no rights. The other thing on this is now starting in around the area, it started in Horry County, and Laura and I talked about this a lot. They're now saying that if you have a water line and you come to the city and or county and you have a water line, and they'll come back to you now and say, well, we'll give you that water line, but if you ever become contiguous with another city property, you're automatically annexed. So now they're putting rules inside of the water system and the sewer system that makes you contiguous. And that's one thing, Neil, I would really like to see if we can get that stopped to where they can't use utility lines to automatically become contiguous. And that is one of the things that absolutely disturbs me, because that would automatically make us contiguous because we have sewer on Habersham. So we would automatically be in the city whether we wanted to be or not. And I don't know how you guys feel about annexations. You might like it, you might not like it. We particularly didn't like it, so we fought it a little bit, and we made kind of we made a little bit of our voice heard. And the city shut us down with a 13.25 ordinance that says we no longer can speak at the city of Easley. And so now we're just asking anybody that's in the city limits to come out and speak for us so that we can have a voice again and maybe shut this stuff down. The other thing is, and I didn't bring it up here, hold on, Rick. We have some stuff that's going out in the mailers, and I don't know if you guys have paid attention to this, but when you get a mailer in the mail, just pay attention to who endorses it. And a lot of times you're going to see it's a realtor association that's endorsing these people. It's people that don't even live in the area. So this one particular one was endorsed by the Western Upstate of Realtors. The other one was Greater Greenville Association of Realtors. So these guys are endorsing people in our community that we have no say-so over. So it's just a big realtor, and I think they've endorsed you, Neil. Have they done that in the past? So this is a situation I think that we all can probably get on board with and decide whether these candidates are our candidates or are they realtors' candidates. So the next time you get a mailer in the mail, I'm just asking you guys to take a look at it and see who endorsed them. So you guys, thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jessica.
All right, so we want to make sure your question is heard.
My question is, with all this construction that's going to take place, who's responsible and accountable for houses being built in flood zones? Who's responsible for the construction not being solid? Who's going to answer when all this stuff starts to fall apart because they put these houses up like they're paper thin? Like no one cares, there's no pride, and last I checked, we still live in America. People should be accountable and they should have to answer.
Well, I don't disagree with that. Is there, the issue, Henry has dealt with this pretty effectively, I think, in the last week or two on water runoff and flooding, like a housing development's put up, and the water is running off of it. It wasn't handled properly, and the water from a development is running into their neighbors' yards and on their property and ruining their property. So is there anybody would like to speak to that knows more about it than I do?
Well, I think the
Daniel,
houses
this
are
is Daniel Lee.
Their houses are being built to code. I mean, they really are. I mean, they're inspectors and things. Now, it's the minimum code. It's the cheapest windows. It's the very minimum. But I think, they really are. And you don't want to say out loud they're not unless you really have information. They're not.
My house was built 5 years ago, okay? On the left side of my property, I had 5 feet of property. You know what's there now? A little slant, and I've only been living there 4 years.
No, those are big issues. And,
Big?
well, those are huge issues. But those are that's what we're trying to change. I mean, we want to see, you obviously have the 5-foot setback. And that's not enough, and that's kind of what our proposal is. And one of the big things that I don't know if I think Jessica touched on it and everybody, is that we kind of need to get the city and the county ordinances very similar, because like when your kid, if your husband's more lenient than you, the kid's going to go to your husband for permission. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to go back and forth and go with the rules that are the slackest.
I really, I don't mean to take up your time.
No,
but
that's what we're here for. Go ahead.
You have issues, you're mad.
Listen,
Good.
I moved down here because of the way you people live, okay? I left New York and came down here for a quality of life. You guys don't stand up for what you have, you don't know what's going to hit you. Because the place I come from, it's infiltrated with gangs, drugs, violence. I mean, I can go on and on. So to come down here and have my house built on a flood zone and have nobody accountable to talk to about it, because I have gone to the meetings while everybody sits there and they're giving you the attitude like they don't want to be here. They're supposed to be serving us. They are in a serving position, and they don't want to hear it. And I've made multiple phone calls, and I had a book of notations that are in the garbage.
Alex, you brought a whole crowd from New York down here with you, didn't you? Is there anybody, any of the elected officials would like to address, like, is there impact studies? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to learn here too. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. Is there like impact studies that are required where they're going to say this is where the runoff water is going to have to go? How many retention ponds you have to have? Or I mean, does anybody, who addresses that? Can somebody answer that? Anybody want to take that question?
I'm in the United States, and I just like to throw out.
Are you in the city?
I'm in the city.
Okay,
Tommy Hawkins.
I was very surprised too when I started going to the meetings about the 168 houses that are going by our development. And I started to hear from my neighbors that they have been living with flooding issues. So how does the city of Easley allow a bill to take place when he knew it was on top of a swamp?
I don't represent the city detail.
I'm just saying, you know, people.
My guess is it's probably not a floodplain.
My point is too, like you said, this is the future. People are coming down here, but they're coming down here for your way of life. And you guys are losing it. You're just signing it over. These contractors don't answer your questions. I've been to several meetings where I said, okay, good that you're going to bring all this development in, but what about the ones that are here suffering to hold on to what they have and can't afford to get a fix?
Well, it sounds like, I'm not the most informed person on this subject, but on this list of things that needs to be handled with updating our codes, seems to me like handling runoff water from new developments needs to be part of the list of things we need to have addressed. Does anybody agree with that?
Absolutely.
Is there any other, you got somebody else?
I would just like to say that
Introduce yourself.
I'm Laura Henty, hello. But in talking to Lisa, I just wanted her to know that, you know, we've encountered several people in, you know, going to the meetings that are not getting their questions answered. So, you know, you're not alone in that, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. It's not fair. But
It isn't about fair. I mean, if you want to use me as an example, I'm good with that. But you are going to have people in your area next to you that are going to be very unhappy if codes aren't followed, if the structure itself is not right, if you put their house in a flood area. And rightfully so, because I took every dime I had to buy a house down here. And I'll tell you something, you can say a lot of bad things about New York, but all I'd have to do is pick up and call the county, and they'd be there to fix it.
Okay.
one thing also that we could do is get a higher stormwater fund, because right now our stormwater fund, I think, is $50,000 for City of Easley. So, I mean, I think that could be
That's
increased.
tiny.
Yeah. So.
Does anybody else have a question for any of these folks with the information I gave you a while ago? Something you need to be added to the list or something you'd like to have defined? Here.
Do we? Do we?
Hello, everyone. Have you guys heard of the South Carolina venue crisis? Wonderful. So it's a new audience, so hopefully you guys can help spread awareness. So I am Ashton Reed. I am a part of the South Carolina venue crisis team. And what it is it started back in 2017 with Bill 116 by the lovely Luke Rankin, who is a injury lawyer. So if you remember that, when I tell you the rest of this, then you might put two and two together that this was a gift to the trial lawyers. So Bill 116 passed 2017, which required all establishments that carry liquor to have a $1 million policy. We are not fighting that. We're not saying that establishments should not have a liquor liability or a $1 million policy, but percentage of fault. So this bill allows the trial lawyers to sue any and every bar that a person that possibly attended, can be sued for $1 million. That's up to no telling how many bars. So this is now putting many businesses out if something is not done ASAP, because in 2017, the liquor liability for an establishment was between $5 to $6 grand a year. That's totally reasonable. Now, most establishments that now getting the renewal quotes are between $60 grand and $100,000 a year. Small businesses cannot afford that, and they will close. And it's not just about being able to go to your local restaurant or watering hole to get an adult beverage or listen to live music. It's the livelihood of South Carolina, because the trickle-down effect will be drastic and heartbreaking. So what we're asking is to help bring awareness, and if you would love to join our team, because we are a very small team, we're very tired, and we would love any and all help we can get to help bring awareness to this and make sure that South Carolina does not become a dead state or a state of emergency. Because, I mean, how many people like to go to a restaurant that's not a Chili's or Applebee's or a franchise? Yeah? Keep it local? Yes. Well, if something's not done about this ASAP, all of those, well, maybe not all, the majority of them will disappear, because people can't, I can't pay $100,000 for just insurance. That's not rent. That's not anything else of owning a business. That is just liquor liability. And so we would love for you guys to, like you said before, to reach out to your local rep, make them aware of this. If they're not already aware of it, we're having, yes.
We're just to make sure that we're staying on time. We thank you so much for bringing this up, but we're going to keep moving with our agenda that we have. We're going to go ahead and take our 5-minute break. And then we'll come back and do more Q&A to stay on the development topic. So we can cut the feed now, and we will get going with our break, and then we'll come back. Thank you all so much.